Hello you lovely people and welcome. Today I'm going to do something slightly different. It's not going to be a normal navigational video or tutorial. I thought I would perform a mock pop-up attack on RAF Holbeach range, which is in the wash just here. But I thought I'd do it taking off and flying back to Super Spud's Queen Elizabeth class aircraft carriers. And I'll be using DC Designs Harrier GR9. Now, our flight will take us off the Queen Elizabeth, bring us down to Sculthorpe. Now I'm going to make a short hop to King's Lynn, then Sutton Bridge, and then we're going to get to Gedney, where our initial point is. Anybody who doesn't know any of this side of things, initial point is the point of before the target point. So we're going to come up off Sutton Bridge. We're going to do a 45-degree climb up to around 3,000 feet. We're going to wing over, come down, and settle our reticule on the range here at RAF Holbeach. We will perform our run-in and our bomb drop, then egress out into the wash, where I'll be making some evasive manoeuvres and mock expendables dispensing, and then we'll head inland towards Boston, head along the coast up to Skegness, and then back out towards the carrier and perform our vertical landing on the deck. So just to cover the pop-up attack that I will be doing, I'll be using a mock CCIP approach, and for those who don't know what CCIP stands for, that's constantly computed impact point. And basically you switch into the air-to-ground mode, you select your bombs, which I'll be again using mock Mark 83s, they're 1,000 pounders, and these will be shown as fuel tanks. I'll be using the fuel tanks as mock Mark 83s, and what it does is it takes in the aircraft's altitude, speed, angle of attack, things like that, and then it will calculate an impact point, and on the HUD you'll get a vertical plumb line, and at the bottom of that plumb line is where the impact point will be. And what you do is you just place that area, that point on top of the area you want to bomb, and you keep it steady. Once you get to bomb release point, you pick all the bombs and then you get out as quickly as you can. There is another method, another popular method, which is CCRP, which is the continually computed release point, and this is slightly different, where the point at the bottom of the plumb line isn't the impact point but the point of release. So what you do is you follow your plumb line to the target, hold your pickle button down, and then you'd get a countdown timer and the bombs would release once it gets to 0, and then again you make your way out. CCRP is slightly different, not really that easily to imitate in flight sim, whereas the constantly computed impact point is, because we can use the vertical velocity indicator as our point of impact and use that to go down to our target. So I've waffled on long enough, let's actually get in the cockpit and perform the attack. Right, so I thought I'd start on the deck hot and save the startup process. I'm just going to go do the final checks for takeoff. Oxygen on, flaps down to stall. We're going to put the HUD master mode to V-stall. Radar altimeter will be in use for this mission. We're going to set waypoint to waypoint 1. Okay, we're all good to go. parking brake is off, so we're going to put toe brakes on. Going to throttle up nice and smoothly, and then when we get to the top of the ramp, nozzles to 60 degrees, and then time to get clean. So let's get going. Okay, level out, gear up, flaps up. Going to put the nozzles to 25 degrees to gain some speed. Over 200 knots, so 0 out, throttle back, and get on our mission.
Altitude, altitude.
Okay, and I like to throttle back to below 95% just to keep the engine comfortable. Okay, we're not on the waypoint marker as I want to merge back onto the actual flight plan. Once I get back on the flight plan, we'll set up for the mission ahead.
Altitude, altitude.
Okay, so we can start making our turn onto the waypoint marker. Okay, so we're now on our flight plan, and while we're nice and level, just set the aircraft up for the, like I say, the mission ahead. So master arm on, we can now go to nav master mode. I'm going to switch on the air to ground just to save me forgetting it later. Now our bombs are Mark 83s are on pylons 2 and 4, and at this point where I would select them, but that's not an ability on this version just yet, or if it will be I don't know. So just go around and make sure that I'm all good with everything else. Okay, so 21 nautical miles away from RAF Sculthorpe. So let's get it nice and low.
Altitude, altitude.
Be on the lookout for anything that could be a threat. No air threats about at the moment. Could have done with some top cover really, some Typhoons or F-15s. But that's fine. Seem to be drifting off slightly. So make some course corrections. Once we get feet dry, we want to stay low, just in case there are any SAM sites about. Make life a little bit more difficult for them. And as a heads up, when we get to the target area, you will hear me say chaff flare, and that's just me indicating that I'm releasing countermeasures. So if you think I've gone crazy, that's not the case. Okay, we are now feet dry. Okay, another 5.5 nautical miles to go till we hit Sculthorpe.
Altitude. Altitude.
Okay, change the waypoint to waypoint 2. Yeah, we're over the top of Sculthorpe now, so we can turn on to our next waypoint. Okay. So King's Lynn is our next port of call.
Altitude. 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 Altitude.
Fully aware of my altitude, thank you very much.
Altitude. Altitude.
Go around these trees instead of going over them. Back on track.
Altitude. Altitude.
Okay, we're coming up to King's Lynn now. Set the next waypoint.
altitude, altitude,
Okay, so we can turn on to the next waypoint. There's the football field that we were aiming for. So we want to get onto the waypoint for Sutton Bridge now, before our initial point at Gedney.
altitude, altitude,
Okay, so 1.4 nautical miles away, we'll switch over to Gedney. Make our turn in shortly. And turn in now.
altitude, altitude,
Okay, so coming up to our initial point, and a couple of nautical miles, or well, about a nautical mile away, I'll start the 45-degree climb up. Should be able to see the Holbeach range shortly. That's if we're not too low. Okay, so we're going to pull up now, full throttle. Chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare. Okay, I'm going to roll over, pull over onto our target point here. Get the point up on our target. Pickle, pull up, make some evasive manoeuvres, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, dive down for the water, chaff flare, chaff flare, chaff flare, and then we want to head inland towards Boston. Okay.
altitude, altitude,
Okay, so head inland now. Throttle back slightly. Look around for any threats. Doesn't seem to be anybody chasing us. RWR doesn't seem to be pinging. Oh, what's going on here? Oh, it's sorted itself out now. It's alright. Next waypoint. Skegness.
altitude, altitude,
Okay, it's not as tight as it could have been, but I think we would have got the target had we released anything. Just a shame there's not a replay function on here just yet. I do miss that. Now, if you're wondering about the countermeasures on the Harrier, whether it be GR9 or AV-8B Plus or AV-8B, they carry chaff and flare cartridges. The Americans use the back top half of the aircraft's fuselage to release the chaff and flare, and underneath the flare cartridges underneath near the air brake. We just have the chaff and flares on the underside, I believe, and we can also carry pods on the wings that release countermeasures too. And what you can do is you go in, you program burst sequences, how many
altitude,
flares or chaff are released in the burst, and then you have sequences, which are sequences of bursts. So you can have two bursts at 1 second, dividing between the two, and each burst can be up to 4 flares, or as many flares as you want actually, and as much chaff as you want. My usual setup is 4 flares, 4 chaff, and then another second later 4 flares, 4 chaff, and tends to work for me.
Altitude.
But it also depends. You can change it depending on what type of threats you are going to expect. So if you're expecting SA9s, SA8s, they are short-range surface-to-air missiles, and they run on a sort of AIM-9 type heat recognition warheads. So you'd want to take flares, but if you were up against I don't know, S300s, things like that use radar, then you want to take more chaff, and you want to program more chaff, or chaff only. So it's quite in depth. And then obviously your electronic countermeasure pod that can be carried underneath, things like that. So unfortunately I don't think Flight Sim will ever be that in depth when it comes to simulating that sort of stuff, unless somebody finds a way of sort of integrating that into the sim, which would be cool. But who knows what the future holds. It's flying rather low on an offshore wind farm here, which isn't the best idea. And set the TACAN for the frequency for the carrier 108, all the zeros. And no, nothing. That's a shame. Oh well. I know where the carrier is anyway, it's on my flight plan, but would have been nice to have some navigational aids there. we're 5.5 nautical miles away from our final waypoint before the carrier. Okay, we'll switch over to our final waypoint. I see the carrier in front of me. I'll take air ground off now. I'll switch over to V-stall. And throttle up to 350 knots and steady at 800 feet. Okay, past the island. 3, 2, 1, brake. So up and down. Okay, get the gear down, flaps down, okay, and we are going to nozzle to 60, as is the style. Okay, and now we're down the back end of the carrier. We are now going to start making our turn. Not losing too much height. Okay, messed this one up good and proper. Okay, get nozzles to 70. And now to 80. Nice and slow. Okay, we don't want to shoot our load before we get to the end, so keeping it nice and steady. Now we can start slowing down into the hover. Keeping it nice and steady. And we can have overdone it slightly here. Right, make our way over. Okay. And start bringing it down nice and slow. Okay, that landing took way too long. And clean our aircraft up. Okay, and taxi to parking. I'm just going to choose one of these bays here. Alright, okay, parking brake on. There you have it. So that was taken off from Queen Elizabeth class carrier down to make a mock pop-up bombing attack on Holbeach range, and then flying back. So if you actually bothered to watch this far, thank you very much, and yeah, I appreciate it. So take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.